And, ooh, that was new. Did you hear the lady? Recording
Yes.
it anonymous. All right, so we're gonna do hips. So let's just do hips and shoulders kind of stuff that we usually do. And we will begin seated. Just find a comfortable seat. Cross-legged or extend your legs out. Take a little time to organize yourself and get yourself comfortable in your space. And make sure that whatever seat you have chosen, you have done so because you can very easily settle your pelvis down. So maybe you even reach down and move your bum over to either side a little bit and settle your sitting bones down into your mat. Let your eyes close. Bring your attention down into those sitting bones for a moment and imagine from those sitting bones, the pelvis sitting like a bowl on top of them. And your spine rising up out of that bowl. Bring your attention up to your shoulders and see if you can just sort of sense this floating quality to your ribs and shoulders and head. You're just waving atop this big, long line of vertebrae that is your spine. And back down into your pelvis, that bowl, your sitting bones. And just taking a few deep, full breaths here to just really make that transition into our time together, this space that we hold together. And before you begin moving your body, just take one moment here to set any intention for your practice for this hour that we spend together. Just take a moment here to make any intention known to you. What do you hope to get out of this next hour of work? And then just go ahead and take an inhale from here and take those arms out and up and join the palms up above your head. And as you exhale, bring those hands down to your heart and just let your thumbs touch your chest for a moment here. Just meditating for one more moment on that intention that you have set. And then from here, just go ahead and walk your fingertips out in front of you. So just folding yourself forward here, just let it be nice and easy. First move of the day, it doesn't have to be a big one. Keep your attention in your sitting bones, in that pelvis though, and keep those sitting bones rooted down even as you're folding yourself forward. So what you end up with is a spine that feels sort of rounded and C-shaped. Drop your head down, move your chin in toward your chest. And then from here, go ahead and extend these arms out like downward dog arms. You're just keeping your body where it's at, your legs where they are. And then just walk these arms over to the left. So you're giving your right side body a stretch. Your right hip becomes a little bit heavy. Sometimes I like to stack my right hand on top of my left hand, but sometimes that gives me more stretch than I want. So maybe the right hand just gets close to the left, but there's still that length through the right side body. And then go ahead and move this over the other direction. So the hands move over to the right so that the stretch comes through the left side. There's a definite heaviness to the left hip, the left sitting bone, and perhaps you bring the left hand on top of the right. But again, if it's too much, or if it's different on this side, then definitely honor this side. Stretching your own personal left side. And then go ahead and come back up to vertical with your spine here. Oh, here comes Gabby again. I was wondering what happened to her. Okay, and then from here, just go ahead and you can bring your hands to your knees, or maybe they just go to the floor, and we're just gonna do some circles here. So just bringing the chest forward and to the side and back. And maybe it's really big, the circle, maybe they're not very big at all. Just trying to find a quality of side stretching and also back bending and forward bending. And again, just kind of looking at the groundedness of the hips and then the floating quality of these shoulders. And make sure you go the other way with your circles if you haven't already. And then once you're done with that, go ahead and just bring yourself up and over your crossed ankles and come to all fours. So begin by placing your hands directly underneath your shoulders and your knees directly beneath your hips. So you're in a perfect little tabletop. And then let's start by just taking the hips back toward the heels. And then rock this back up and take the weight just forward. I want to give myself a little bit more length. I don't really like where my hands landed. So if that's you, go ahead and adjust them a little bit. We're taking the shoulders just forward of the wrists and then back. And just forward of the wrists and back. And what I would love for you to feel here is just this nice gliding motion of your spine, the connection between your hips and your shoulders, how they both work together. If you want to add a little challenge here, you can put a little baby dip to your arms. You don't even need to go very far at all. The heart is moving forward, and it's just like a little baby chaturanga. So it's just a little bit of work for your shoulders and arm muscles. So now let's give these circles, so playing off of the circles that we just did with our spines when we were seated, go ahead and take the weight a little bit forward again. Now take it over to the left and then back and through the middle and up through the right, and then take the weight forward. And if something about the way that I've cued you is like my body hates that, then just make it so that basically all we're doing now is taking the shoulders and the hips through a circular motion. So maybe your hand placement is a little bit different than mine. So both ways with these two. But now you're using a lot of stabilizing muscles to allow your body to move in this kind of fluid around the world sort of fashion. Okay, so let's do some work on the hips here. Why don't you go ahead and bring this right foot forward. And we'll just take a low lunge here so the back knee can stay down. You're at about a 90-degree angle in the forward knee, but again, your mileage may vary, it always might. So from here, bring your gaze forward. So it's a lot like that back and forth movement that we were doing, but now we're adding a little lift to the hips too. So you look forward, and as the gaze goes forward, there's an ever so slight drop to your hips. Tuck these back toes and lift this back knee and put a little bit of elevation into these hips. And then go ahead and lower this back down. So let's do a few of these. Just lifting up and looking forward too. As you look forward, you push out this back heel, and there's lots of power in this body too. So lowering down and lifting up, you're using stabilizing muscles. You're using a lot of power, but there's also quite a good bit of stretch in here too, right? So if you wanted to add on from this, you could bring your torso more up to vertical. Bring your hands to stack on your knee. And then do this, lift and lower, and lift and lower. This takes quite a bit more coordination and strength and just all of it. So just do a few of them. It's only my intention to really mobilize your hips. If you want to put a little bit more mustard on this, go ahead and take your arms up overhead. Wah! Up overhead and give yourself a little crescent pose here. And then just go ahead and take all of this apart. Just take it all back. Bring your right knee back to meet your left. Tuck your toes and lift your hips and come into a little downward dog here. So just be an upside down V for a moment. You can take these feet nice and wide. That'll give you more space in the backs of your legs, more stretch going on. You can bend your knees a little bit too. You can walk your dog. Walk your dog, walk your dog. And then let's do that much work on the second side. So when you're ready, just go ahead and take this left foot forward. Drop your right knee down. Stack your bones the way they make sense. And then to start with, tuck your back toes and lift your back knee, lifting the pelvis too, lifting your core too, and sending your heart up and a little bit forward and lowering down and lifting up. And just a couple of these, and then as that synovial fluid starts getting going in your hip girdle, you might find that it just makes more sense for you to put more challenge on it. So stacking hands on top of the knee and then lifting and lowering here. And going nice and slow, you only need to do a few of them. And then just for a little bit of last minute power, go ahead and take these arms up and over and just give yourself a nice, big, beautiful crescent lunge. And then again, take this back down. You can drop this back knee down, transition back through child's pose, tuck your toes, lift your hips, and find that downward dog again. And use this downward dog like a nice transition. So, let the feet be wide. We're not going anywhere from here. We're not going to flow this anywhere really. So you can just use this pose to help with your hips and stretching out your back body. From your downward dog, go ahead and do this for me. Bend your knees. Bend your knees quite a lot. Tilt your tailbone up toward the ceiling. Push your hands straight down into the mat and a little bit forward, so there's lots of power going on in your arms. That's going to help you then send these knees straighter, but not necessarily perfectly straight, leaving your tailbone scooped up like that, so you just get a really big old stretch out of the hamstrings. Your hamstrings should be singing to you. But don't make them bark, just make them very alive. Okay, so from here, let's go ahead and drop this down into all fours. Dropping down into all fours then, go ahead and take this right leg straight back. You can tuck your left toes or leave the left leg flat or the left foot flat on the ground. Totally up to you. And we're just gonna, again, start with forward, backward. So just exhale, take this knee toward your face and take your face toward your knee, and maybe they touch, but they don't have to. I just want this rounded spine for you and this power in your shoulders and the power in your hip too. So go ahead and inhale and send this out, and send your gaze out too, so we have that length through your spine, right? And then draw this in and back out and in and back out. Okay, so do this for me. With this right leg is back out. You can watch me do it if you want to. I'm going to tuck this right knee behind me. I'm going to separate my feet a little bit, and I'm going to send my hips back sort of between my heels, but my bum is really close to my right heel, and my butt is not touching the ground, and I'm stretching my hips, my left hip in particular. But my right is getting a stretch too. It's just a modified shoelace pose, which we've done before. Got that? Okie doke. Go ahead and come back up. Come back to all fours. And we'll just do that much work on the second side. So it's just sending this left leg straight out behind you. And then just keep it on center. Exhale and draw this in. Find that nice rounded quality to your spine. Maybe your nose and knee touch, but maybe they don't. That's not really what we're after. So don't worry too much about that. Worry about pressing your hands down and creating that roundness through your spine. And this nice gentle movement of the thigh bone and your hip bone. Okay, and then from here, we're just going to send this left leg back and then tuck the left knee behind the right knee, and then take your hips back. You my arms stay exactly where they started, but maybe you move yours a little bit. That would be fine. And my hope is that you just find this nice big long broad stretch throughout the sides of your hips, and that it's not too intense, but that it's definitely there. And just take a couple more breaths here in this side. And then let's go ahead and bring this back up to center. Tuck those toes, lift the hips, and come back into your downward facing dog. Walk it out again. We won't have anywhere to go from here, so do what you want with your bones. Just give yourself a nice stretch through the back body. I have my feet very wide, and I'm bending opposite knees. I'm bending my left knee. My right leg is straight, and I'm actually kind of sending my right sitting bone out back behind me so I get a deeper stretch in the outside of my right hip. If that feels good to you. Okay, pigeon pose. Let's go ahead and take this right knee forward toward the heel of the right hand. So let's, we can do this a couple of different ways. My intention for you in giving this to you is just to give you a nice stretch here, but getting into your hips isn't always just stretching. There's also some engagement to be had here. So I would love for you to take a moment and engage your perineum, your pelvic floor. And as you engage that spot, my hope is that you can feel your hips, especially in the position that we're in now. And you can feel them kind of fire up, and maybe you can even feel an up energy out of that. So as you fire your perineum, you actually have more power in your hips, and maybe you can even lift yourself up a little bit. And maybe you can even take your arms up, and this is all extra, so you could just be staying with your hands on the floor. But if you wanted to add power to these hip moves, then this would be a great place to do it. So let's go ahead and just take a couple moments here, just stretch into your own right hip. You can use that power move. You can go ahead and just bring your hips, or those are arms. You can bring your arms forward, hold yourself forward, whatever feels good to you here on this side. Okay, and then let's do a little bit of yoga for your brain and also some circular motion for the hips. So bring yourself back up to vertical, rock the weight over onto your right hip bend, swing this left leg around. The left leg is going to go into pigeon pose and your right leg is going to swing around, and you'll end up in pigeon on the other side. So again here, kind of find the place. You have the placement of your legs in pigeon, which we're all pretty familiar with this pose. And then just take your attention into your pelvic floor, into your perineum. And can you almost send a root down? As you send that root down, engaging that perineum, you have a lot of then core power. And you might find even there's a little bit of buoyancy in this. So it's a hip opener, but we've actually made it really powerful, right? And you can take these arms up and give it lots of core. And then after you've put some power on it, if you're just kind of ready to let that stretch out, then go ahead and just find your way forward. And just stretch into your left hip. Take a couple more breaths here. And then let's go ahead and complement some of the side-side motion. Go ahead and come back up to vertical with your torso. Come back onto your left hip. Swing this right leg back around. Bring the soles of the feet together and just find a nice little bound angle pose. Butterfly. And we're just going to stretch the inner thighs. So you can reach down, take your thumbs, put them on the balls of your feet, and then open your feet like a book, keeping the pinky toe edges together. And kind of playing around with the power move, stretch move that we were just doing in the last pose. The same thing is kind of here too. When you open these feet like a book, it's actually a reaction in your inner thighs. So see if you can find that. As your feet open like a book, your knees want to go out to either side, and there's a stretch in your inner thighs as a result of that. Cool, cool. So from here, go ahead and bring the weight back behind you. Cross this right leg over top. Open this back up. Cross the left leg over top. Open this back up. Cross the right leg over top. And just go with this motion a little bit. It's a really gentle, lovely baby twist. It incorporates a lot of the movements that we've been doing to try and get into your hips and open these babies up. If you want to stay right here, just stay right here. It's open, close. You're lifting the hip, so there's that twist in your pelvis. If you want to add on to this, then crossing left leg over top of right, then go ahead and send this left leg out long. So now the sole of the right foot is touching the inside of the left thigh. And then take this right arm up and over and just stretch your whole side waist. Okay, and then take this back apart, take this left leg back in, cross it over once again. Open this back up like a clamshell, close it off the other side, and then slide this right leg out. Right hand, you've done this pose, you decide where it goes. Left arm goes up and over, and this is now a stretch for your left waist. So go ahead and let this flow a few times. Take the weight back, draw this right leg back in. It closes like a book over top of the left. Then you open it like a book. Cross left leg over top, and then slide it out. And then stretch out long. The right side waist gets a nice stretch. and then you take this back. Slide this left leg back in. Open this back up. Close it again and slide this right leg out. Okay, go ahead and bring this back up. Draw this right leg back in. Close it off like we've been doing. Open it back up. Close the left over top. Slide this left leg out. And now instead of moving the stretch into your right side waist, move it into your left QL. So now you're taking your whole self over this left leg. You're dropping down heavy through both hips. There's lots of stretch now through the back body and particularly parallel to the spine. Take a couple more breaths here. And then go ahead and take this one apart. We'll do this again. We'll come back to this side, but for now, go ahead and draw this left leg back in, close it, and open it, and close it, and slide this right leg out. And then again, instead of turning this into a side stretch, we're going to turn it into a back stretch. So the heart goes toward the toes. Drop down through those sitting bones that we started this practice with. Just taking a couple of breaths here, allowing your spine to grow long over this right leg. Go ahead and bring this back up to vertical. Draw this right leg back in. Take these legs now, soles of feet up toward the ceiling. And then grab the backs of your legs. Float these feet off the ground. So putting a little bit of power into these hips. I would love for this to not be too difficult for you. So bend these legs. The closer these go to the floor, the easier this gets. What I would like for you to find is a place where there's enough ease in your body that you can really take your attention into your belly button. You can find a hollowing sort of action to your abdominals, but then with the hollowing action, there's also a lift to your chest. Got that? So there's like a hollow, empty feeling to your lower belly, but a lift to your chest. And what you might find is that it makes you feel a little bit more buoyant. There's that buoyancy again to your shoulders. Is this making sense? Go ahead and let these legs go long now in front of you and just fold your sweet self over your legs. Bring this back up to vertical. Rock back through our little boat pose. Roll this onto your spine. Send the legs up and over. I am using my hands as leverage down to help me. And I am also using my hands as leverage to help control my descent down. And I'm coming back through that little boat pose and then sending my legs out long and my heart forward. And I think we practiced this little sequence last week, and as you probably have seen, we've practiced together a long time. This is just a series of a bunch of poses. So if you find a place that's interesting for your body, stay there for a little bit. Otherwise, we are just going to strengthen some very deep core muscles, put some length into our bodies, allow some stretch and some strength to take place, and for everything to kind of work together. These look great, you guys. Good jobs. Okay, let's do one more so that we all kind of get back on the same page. We're going to send the legs up and over into a plow pose. And then as you come down gently and just let the Left leg come down and let the right leg stay up toward the ceiling. Give yourself capital T arms. With your next inhale, cross the body with this right leg, pointing your right toes out toward the left. Your right hip comes off the mat. With the exhale, send this right leg out to the right and your left hip does not come off the mat. And that's your challenge in this move, is to keep stability on actually the left side as the big old right leg moves out to the right. Inhale, cross center. Exhale, away from center. Inhale, cross center. Keep going as we've been doing, or exhale and take this in a full circle now so this right leg goes down, around, and back up. Inhale, cross center. Exhale, big old swoop of the leg. So your challenge really becomes right about here. It starts to get intense on your left side. Keep that left side pinned down so that you can bring this big old heavy leg up. All right, let's just go on the other side. Send the right leg out long and send the left leg up. And then we'll just start with a couple of those side to side. So it's an inhale to cross. The left hip is lifting up. And then it's an exhale to find that stability through your hip. The challenge is to keep the right hip down. Inhale, cross body. Exhale, away from body, keep right hip down. Inhale, cross body. Exhale, keep going that way, or take this in a circle now and find the challenge as you reach that last quarter turn of movement to try and keep your right hip down and stable. You'll definitely probably find that one side is easier than the other. And interestingly, it changes for me. It's not always the same. So just let it be what it is. Okay. So now from here, go ahead and come back to the other side. Let's take the right knee in and send the left leg long. And then just find a little bit more subtlety to the core. So for this first part, it's really, really subtle and you can't really see much of it in video, but you're interlacing your fingers across your right knee. And then as you exhale, you're pulling on your right knee and you're also pushing into your right hand. And what that's really doing is firing your very, very deep core muscles. And as you keep doing this, my hope is that you can feel the connection with your left leg, and that as these core muscles start to come alive, this left leg wants to lift as you exhale and pull. And as you inhale, it just lets go. And as you exhale and pull, there's this sort of concerted effort to lift this left leg. It looks like a leg exercise, but it's a core exercise. All right, so the next time you exhale, go ahead and see if you can let go of the knee, but still maintain that engagement in your core. And then interlace your fingers behind your head. And then with your next exhale, take this left leg all the way up. And as you inhale, just let it go back down toward the floor. And exhale and lift it up. Inhale and let it go back down. So you can keep going with this. Do a couple more. You can move your shoulder blades down toward the floor so it's not as intense, but really you're working with deep, deep, deep core muscles, and my hope is that you feel like you could do a few of these. But it's not a ton of work. All right, let's do that much on the other side. So just tuck this left knee in and send the right leg out long, and then just wake up these super deep core muscles. So you're exhaling, you're pushing the left knee into your hand, and you're also pulling your hands back on that knee. And what's really firing up is very, very deep core muscles. And it just starts to make sense for this right leg to kind of lift off because your hips are just so strong and powerful. So as that connection is found, go ahead and test it by taking an exhale, putting on your moves, and then holding them there as you release your hands from your knee. And then go ahead and interlace your fingers behind your head. And then with the next exhale, take this right leg up, but you're using those core muscles to do it. And inhaling, you're letting it go back down. And exhaling, you're lifting it up. And inhaling, going back down. But you're really beginning this movement from way, way, way down, deep, toward your spine almost. It's such deep core muscles. Couple more breaths here. All right. If you're over it, go ahead and just have your knees in toward your chest. You could rock a little bit from side to side, just massaging your low back. And then just complementing this with a little bit of rounded movement. So from here, go ahead and send these legs back up. You can do whatever you want to with your arms. Actually, if you still want more core work, go ahead and turn this into an abdominal curl. If you don't want core work, just leave this as capital T arms. And you're just going to send your right foot from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And from 6 to 12, you're just going to take these legs and reverse them. So your left foot is ascribing from 12 to 6, and your right is from 6 to 12. And if you're doing this for core work, then you're just rounding here, and you can actually take opposite elbow to opposite knee. Yep, there you go. And you can go quite rounded with these legs, or you can keep them somewhat on center. But really what I want for you is those hips. So here is a completely fine place to be. All right, let me give this a quick time check. When you're done with it, just hug your knees in toward your chest. All right. Hugging knees in toward chest. Cup those knees with your hands and just take them in separate circles. Take the knees wide and away, together and apart. And then go ahead and keep your knees together and take them in one great big circle. I like to actually not have my hands on my knees for this one. And just kind of send them around like you're making an imprint of the pelvis on your mat. Be sure to take it the other way too, so you go in both circles. Take the feet onto the mat, let the knees be quite wide, and just give yourself windshield wiper knees here. So my knees are moving over to the right, both of them, and my left hip is off the mat. And then going the other way. So just mimicking that gentle low back stretch that we've been doing. Now go ahead and bring the soles of the feet a little bit closer for a bridge pose. But I would love to do this bridge pose in a more therapeutic way to start. So from here, go ahead and have your hands down by your hips and lift your hips, but don't lift them too far. I don't want to do a bridge pose yet. What I want to help you do is mobilize the vertebrae in your low back. So you're kind of letting it hang out here, and what I would love for you to feel is just kind of this typewriter motion. Just run your hips from side to side. Side to side, and you're not really trying to sway your legs. Of course, they will sway just a little bit, but what I really want is your hips to be the thing that sways, because what you're really doing is moving the vertebrae side to side like a little snake, which isn't the way that your vertebrae usually move. So same, this time go ahead and twist it. So you're just gonna drop your left hip down, lift that left hip back up, drop your right, lift the right back up, drop the left. So now it's just like a little kind of twist almost. And again, it's not a very big movement. I'm really trying to exaggerate it so it comes across on video, but you wouldn't even necessarily see it It's pretty subtle. Okay, go ahead and give your low back a break. Hug your knees in toward your chest again if that feels good to you. So let's call that door number one. Sometimes when my back is really tired and sore, I just do that little exercise, and it just kind of helps me get some stuff unstuck. So if that's you, since our main intention is to mobilize the hips and sort of nurture them, then stay with that. Door number two, bring your feet back into bridge position. Exhaling, lift your hips up to a nice, respectable bridge height. Inhaling, take your arms up overhead so the backs of the hands come to the floor above your head. Exhaling, lower your spine down, starting at the shoulders and ending at the tailbone. Inhaling, the arms go back to starting position. Exhale, lift hips. Inhale, take arms up overhead. Exhale, lay the spine down gently, bit by bit. Inhale, lay the arms down gently too. Exhale, lift hips. Inhale, rainbow arms. Exhale, lay the spine down bit by bit. Inhale, arms follow. One more, exhale, lift hips. Inhale, rainbow arms. Exhale, lower the spine piece by piece. Inhale, rainbow arms. So door number two. Door number three, let's just make that an actual bridge pose. So you would lift your hips on an exhale, clasp your hands beneath the small of your back, and then roll your shoulders, tuck your shoulder blades underneath you so you're drawing your shoulder blades together behind your back. That's broadening your chest and allowing you a little bit more grounding power to lift your hips a little bit higher. With this, you're energetically pulling your feet back ever so slightly, and that's helping to fire up your hamstrings and also your thighs, so your butt doesn't have to work so hard. Lower your sweet self back down. Hug your knees back in toward your chest. Door number four would be a full wheel. If you want a full wheel for this practice, it would be a good one. We've done a lot of side stretches, so you might like a full wheel. Let's go ahead and do one more back bend of your choice. So you could start with just the lower back mobilization that we did. You could do the breathing bridge. You could do an actual bridge, or you could position your feet and your hands into a full wheel and then push this into a full back bend. Decide what your back wants. Decide what would feel good for you. And then honor that. Remember, all we're really trying to do is stretch the hips and mobilize those babies. When you're done with your back bend, go ahead and hug your knees back in toward your chest one more time. Keep your right knee and send your left leg long. Hug this right knee out to the right, let the right thigh run alongside your right rib cage. Find that same heaviness to your left hip that we were practicing when we were doing those big, long leg circles. And turn this into a half happy baby. Grab the inside or outside of your right foot. You can also grab the back of the right knee if you wanted to, that would be fine. What we're looking for are lots of stability through the left hip as this right hip opens. You can send this left arm up overhead. I like to do that because it helps me make my left side heavier, so I can engage my left side in an effort to stretch my right. Reciprocal inhibition. Now go ahead and take this right ankle and cross it over top of your left knee. And thread the needle, send your right hand through the space between your legs and clasp your hands behind your left thigh. You can use your right elbow to push your right knee away. I'm just taking a few more breaths here. Nice big deep breath, Push it into your hips so that your hips expand with the breath, and thusly your stretch does too. You know, since we were working with deep core muscles on the front, let's go ahead and definitely get your piriformis in the back. So take this left knee from 12 o'clock over to like 10 o'clock or so and pull it in a little bit more. You should find the stretch goes deeper into the right hip. Your piriformis is another stabilizing core muscle, but it's actually in your booty. So we want to stretch that baby. And then let's just do that sequence on the other side. So go ahead and send this right leg out, have your left knee in. And then find this left thigh moving out toward the left ribs. And then bring your attention into your right side. Ask that right side to get very heavy and the right hip to get very stable as you reach for something on the left side, the left foot or the back of the left knee. Again, my right arm always just goes up, but that's just me. It's how I was taught. So it's stuck in there. You don't have to, but what I find is that I can just get more grounding out of my right side because I can engage everything more. Just take a few more breaths here. And then cross this left ankle over the right knee. Turn this into a thread the needle pose. And again, you can use your left elbow to encourage your left knee away from you, but it's not necessary. You just decide what would feel good to you. Two more deep breaths here, and then let's localize this stretch right on your piriformis to help complement the core work that we've been doing. So take this right knee from 12 o'clock over to like 2 and draw it in tighter. And take a few more breaths here. All right, go ahead and come back onto your back. Take these feet, draw them together, interlace your fingers outside of your pinky toes. And just take a couple of moments here. Stretching those inner thighs. See if you can send your tailbone out long toward the opposite edge of your mat. And then go ahead and send these legs up toward the ceiling. And we'll use this position for our constructive rest. So just take a few breaths here. I'm going to do a quick time check, but I suspect that we just have about a minute or so to spare to do our own work. So let me get a look at that really quick. Yeah. So take a breath here and decide what you want to do from here. Maybe you want to leave your feet up. Maybe you want to do some ankle circles. Point your feet, flex your feet. Maybe you'd like to turn this into a plow pose. Just use the next minute to finish what we've started. Ask your body what it wants. In my experience, it will come right forward with something if it really needs it. And then making your own way into your Shavasana as you feel ready to. But taking your time with it And just making sure that you're done, your body's done. And then once it's Shavasana time, find your way onto your back. And sometimes I don't care about how neutral and perfect my Shavasana is, and sometimes I really like to do it perfect. And so since we've done so much work on your hips and sending them in so many different directions, try to set up your Shavasana as perfect as you can. So make it as neutral as possible. So when I do it, I like to put my heels out to either corner of my mat, so I'm perfectly in center. Let my feet flop out to either side. Lay down on your back. Let your palms face up toward the ceiling. Make sure that you like how your hips have landed. You might have to adjust those a little bit. Just see if every joint in your body can be neutral and just happy where it's at. No one has a job to do. Everyone is experiencing neutral after having gone through their full range of motion. We now just find rest in the center. Let the breath be deep and full. And the only thing that you're doing right now, just breathing. Start to let your breath get deeper now. And before you move your body, just push your breath around your body. Start with your hips. And let your belly expand as you breathe, but see if you can also extend that movement into your hips and the expansion into your hips. And then before you really move your body and start to transition out of our time together, just take a moment to remind yourself of that intention that you had set for your practice. Maybe it was just to open your hips. Just revisit what that was. And then maybe you're wiggling fingers and wiggling toes. Maybe you are rolling over onto your right side or your left side. Do whatever suits you to come to a comfortable seat. And then just bringing your hands to your heart. You can bring them to prayer. You can stack them on your chest or whatever makes sense to you. Just take a moment here to revisit that intention. If you didn't have one, we were working with the hips. It's always a good intention. Take a moment to find some thanks. Be thankful in your body for its cooperation in this practice. Thank your brain for making the choice to do it. As always, I thank you for choosing to be here with me and spend this time. I appreciate you. Namaste.